very warm welcome to the viewers of ETV Bharat. I'm Smita Sharma here in New Delhi, and joining me in this conversation is a special guest today, Professor Sri Srinivasan. He's somebody who wears multiple hats. He's a tech entrepreneur. He's a visiting professor of digital innovation at the Stony Brook School of Journalism. He was formerly also the chief digital officer at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in Columbia University, as well as for the city of New York. Professor Srinivasan, glad to have you on this conversation today.
Delighted to be here. Hello from the epicenter of the crisis all over the world.
Absolutely, and you've turned this crisis, like all the previous crises, into an opportunity as well through the global podcasts you've been doing on COVID, talking to people, which has, of course, gained a lot of, in fact, popularity and traction as you've been continuing and progressing with your episodes.
Thank you. It's when you have a title of digital innovation in your work, you have to try new things, but this also shows us what so many interesting projects have been launched at this time. This is an opportunity to try new things, and I encourage everybody to work on something. That's a hashtag I've been using. Work on something, try something new, try something different. People are really forgiving at this moment.
Right.
And if you are able to try something, you never know where it'll lead. And so that's something that I encourage people to do. Lockdown is a good opportunity for that.
Absolutely. But one of the primary reasons why we are talking to Professor Sri Srinivasan today is because there's a lot of tumult that's happening inside the United States. Of course, the entire world, the international community is grappling with COVID-19, with some of the decisions that have been announced by the Trump administration. Today, we are going to talk about that, particularly the Student and Exchange Visitor Program, in fact, announced on Monday that essentially they were going to go in for temporary modifications for the F1 non-immigrant students who are pursuing academic coursework and the M1 non-immigrant students pursuing vocational coursework while studying in the United States. Professor Srinivasan, to begin with, if you could give us a sense, does it essentially mean that all active students in the US whose campuses actually go online completely for the fall semester will now have to depart America?
So this is a moment of great chaos. And this is what the Trump administration does. Chaos is their main feature. And as a result of all that chaos, misinformation, disinformation, actively trying to implement their racist and other policies all at the same time, we have seen America fail on the health front, as you know, and the economy front, as you know, and the racial injustice front. You're asking specifically about immigration. The first thing that everybody who's watching now should understand is that this is still a work in progress and comes on as part of a series of things that President Trump and his administration have done that should worry everybody who's watching. We are hopeful that there will be some more clarification around this, but basically people will have an option of either leaving or trying to transfer to another school that has more in-person classes. The good news is that many schools are moving to in-person classes. The bad news on the health side is that is probably a bad idea for this fall semester. And fall also starts early here for many people. On the other hand, because there's enough confusion, maybe there will be some pullback on this. So we don't know is the immediate thought that I have, but I want everybody who's listening and watching to understand that none of this is a surprise. This entire administration is anti-immigration. People who have come here and succeeded here, as you know, in this country so well in many cases, they have succeeded because of the immigration policy, as well as, and this country has succeeded because of the immigration policy, as well as the students' ability to come here, study here, stay here in many cases, most cases, and have an impact here. That is not in President Trump's interest. He does not want IIT people. He doesn't want, so the IIT engineers and people like that who are Indian here think they're exempt from all the racist immigration policies that Trump has created. They think that Trump wants them here. He does not. He would rather have Norwegian fishermen than Indian IIT engineers. The Indians don't understand that here. And as a result, by the way, the Norwegians have no interest in coming here. They've told
Right.
us they have a great country. They don't want to come here. But
Right.
this is something that we should pay attention to.
But before I, in fact, talk about the larger immigration issues that you are highlighting here, if I could just go back once again to that specific student visa issues, because that announcement has just come in. Of course, the Department of Homeland Security says that it's a temporary modification, that detailed guidelines are yet to be put out. But having said that, I know that you are actually networked with a large number of students, in different colleges and universities. And the reading here is that this will massively impact the international students, majority of whom are Chinese and Indians, at least 200,000 Indian students that we're looking at. Have you been receiving a lot of panic calls from students? Have you been receiving, the sense of anxiety and confusion among the student community?
There is great panic. There's great worries about what will happen for the students already here, the students who are coming. As it is, it's very hard to get a visa to come here if you've gotten admission, because the visa offices haven't been open, right? So
Right.
Just on that basis, so this is not as if everything was perfect and then this caused chaos. This is already chaotic and we don't know. So I think what I've been telling anyone who's contacted me is to try to remain calm, see what the actual guidelines are, and then see what happens. Trump does do this thing of floating trial balloons just to see what happens, just to, again, to cause chaos. That doesn't mean that it doesn't become policy. It could become policy,
Right.
and then we'd be in trouble in a major way. Not just for the Indians. I mean, this is a problem for America and a disaster for America.
I mean, the fact is also that, several colleges have already completed their admissions for the fall semester. So getting a transfer to another university would be a huge problem. Countries remain in lockdown positions, and there is no clarity as to when commercial international operations can start taking off, even for a country like India. So this must be causing an entire amount of stress there for the students who are facing all these unknowns at this point in time.
Absolutely. There's nothing, I mean, you're right. There is no clarity in where we are going with this. But again, this is not an accident. This is on purpose, right? Who else would pull out of WHO in the middle of a pandemic than this administration and the chaos it is causing?
But, when you say that, of course, this is a part of a larger racial immigration policy of the Trump administration. I mean, the earlier decisions that were announced of suspending the H-1B visas, L-1 visas till the end of this year at least. Also, that the fate of the green card applicants is also very much unknown now. Is there a domestic constituency that Donald Trump is catering to in an election year?
100%. And the constituency are his base. His base is 90% with him, which is about 40% of the country. I just, in my newsletter this week, the headline was why 40% of Americans continue to support Trump. And even in May, I wrote my newsletter headline was that there's a good chance that Trump will win in November. And that's because this base is xenophobic, is racist, is worried about its jobs. Trump has made the minority people in this country an enemy and immigrants an enemy. And once you do that, then you're just stoking, all you have to do is constantly stoke the fears of that group, giving it misinformation, disinformation, television channels that lie on his behalf every single day. Can you imagine any country where the leader will say 99% of the cases are harmless? He said it this week when 136,000 people have died in this country. That's what he said. And his viewers believe that, because where else will they go? The combination of media that supports him and lies for him, and social media that supports him and lies for him, plus Russian trolls and everything else, is the chaos that he thrives on. And that's where this country is. What he did with the immigration policy on the H1s and L1s is a disaster. And there is a opposite constituency, as you said, asking who's in support of all of this, that, but there are people who are against this, people who understand the value of immigrants. Also, the tech industry is against this because they need those workers. There is, in fact, unemployment levels are still low in the tech business, and those tech jobs are going to go overseas. So
Right.
tech companies are saying, by blocking the H1s, you're not giving jobs to Americans necessarily, because those jobs, there aren't necessarily people who have that. Of course, in a country where we have tens of millions of unemployed people, this is perfect opportunity to have that confusion, create more confusion, and that's what he's relying on.
But then where does this, where does the Indo-American community stand at the moment? Keeping in mind that Joe Biden, of course, the opponent, the candidate for the Democratic Party in the upcoming elections, has given some positive statements in terms of, reinstating H-1B visas and making sure that they are not a problem if he is, in fact, elected to power. What is the narrative within the community at the moment, given the highs that we saw of what was playing out in Houston as a Howdy Modi event, or a follow-up in Gujarat in a packed stadium, the numbers that Trump just couldn't stop talking about? Where does the community really stand in this election year at this point in time?
As you know, there isn't one Indian community. It's splintered into so many ways. There are people who love Trump, who are excited by him because he says things that they want to hear, because they believe that they'll be good for his tax cuts will be good for them, who believe that they have gotten a chance to come here and succeed and stay. The next generation shouldn't come. So, there are those people like that. There are very strong progressive people who are opposed to him, who are fighting all of these regulations. Some of the biggest activists are of Indian origin here as well at the same time. So there isn't one community, and there is a very large portion of Indian Americans that is detached and unconnected, isn't following necessarily the US news, isn't invested, isn't voting, isn't registered. So there are all these other problems as well. But this has been a wake-up call to many of the people that I've spoken to, who thought at worst that Mr. Trump was harmless as a candidate, and chalta hai dekhenge kind of thing. And now, if you are seeing what is happening with immigration here, if this isn't a wake-up call, I don't know what is, because including many of the people who loved Trump are the people who benefited from coming here as students or coming here on an H-1 and being able to stay. And for them to continue to support him after this, and if you forget all of that, his malfeasance and direct causes of people dying, that is the much greater problem, the greater moral problem. How do you support someone? That candidate Trump said, I can shoot a person on Fifth Avenue and I won't lose anybody. Right. Imagine any other leader saying that. Just the concept, why it would even occur to you that I could shoot somebody. He said that on the campaign. Today, he is proving that he can help kill 100,000 people.
Absolutely.
And he won't lose his base. You just have to look at South Korea and America. They got their first confirmed case the same day. And by the time Korea had 200 deaths, America was approaching 50,000 deaths. And Korea is 15 times more dense than America. This is the tragedy that is unfolding before our eyes. I know people in India are distracted by what is happening in India, but the whole world needs to pay attention to what's happening here.
Absolutely, which brings me then to my last two questions, Sri. We saw also Donald Trump, in fact, rant against universities. He lashed out at Harvard University, coming back to that student visa issue, where he said that, it's a lazy way out, where schools are not wanting to open up. I mean, we have seen those horrifying images come out of New York through the month of April, the sirens, the ambulances, the deaths of, somebody that you know, somebody that you love. Is the situation really good enough for colleges to start online, of campuses, to start physical classrooms? And is Donald Trump trying to actually create pressure by also bringing up these notifications that if you don't go online, then look, your students will have to go back?
Yeah, I don't think that they have connected those necessarily. They're not that smart, but he absolutely is forcing not just colleges, K through 12 schools to open. He has said he will put pressure on the governors to open. The country's in the middle of a full-blown pandemic. We were trying to flatten the curve. Instead, we've already gone up. We're not in a second wave. We're in the middle of the first wave. No other country has gone like this and like this at this level so fast at that height throughout, right? We didn't do anything. It's as if the lessons of the pain suffered by everyone who went through the lockdown was wasted completely. One of my friends, his mother died of coronavirus in a nursing home. She had been a nurse for 50 years, and he said that it feels to me like my mother's death was in vain. Think about, you may know, your viewers may know that in America, they make everybody remove their shoes at the airport because of a shoe bomber who didn't actually bomb anything and nobody died. The entire American setup was changed of removing shoes at the airport because of this one incident that nothing happened, thank God. Here, 100,000 people have died, 136,000 people, and they're saying the president is acting as if nothing happened because everything's become political and nothing is a surprise to me as far as this president is concerned.
So finally then, Sri, you mentioned about, of course, the World Health Organization and the United States formally announcing its withdrawal just 24 hours ago from the organization while the entire international community is grappling with this pandemic. We saw Congressman, in fact, Ami Bera, who's also in the House Foreign Affairs Subcommittee. He posted a series of tweets criticizing this. Where does the global order really hold for a superpower nation, the United States of America, keeping in mind that under the Trump administration today, they have pulled out of at least 12 international treaties, agreements, be it the Iranian nuclear agreement or the Paris Climate Change Pact, or now the WHO?
Well, first of all, Ami Bera is a great public servant and also a physician. So he understands these issues. On my show, we had Dr. Soumya Swaminathan, who is the chief scientist of WHO, talking to us about why every country needs to be involved, including America and especially America. And to have this happen, as you were mentioning each of those treaties that America has pulled out of, I just wanted to go like this, but the whole show would have been me just sitting like this. It is tragic at every level. And it isn't, for a while, I and so many other people treated the candidate as a joke, and others, including me, thought maybe he'll come around after he becomes president. But he has shown us his exact plan from day one, and we are here. So who's to be blamed for this? Us. That he isn't surprised. Nothing he has done is shocking or surprising because, hey, he told us he's going to do this. And one of my favorite cartoons is that, of some sheep looking at a poster of a wolf, and the wolf says, "I will eat you," and the sheep are saying, "Oh, he's not going to eat us. He's not, he doesn't mean it." But the wolf is saying he will eat you, right? Like that's what Trump said. He will kill us, and he's doing that right now.
I guess it's been a rude wake-up call for several of those who were living in denial or who were just wishing away that maybe there was enough institutional checks and balances to take care of, even if Donald Trump were the president. But the kind of damning revelations, books after books, his past AIDS after AIDS I've been writing about, and now there is that Mises book where she's also in fact accused Trump of having actually cheated on his, on his SAT scores and others. I mean, there is no end to all this controversy. But appreciate you joining us early morning from New York, Professor Sri Srinivasan. You have a packed day ahead, and we will try and find some time closer to, of course, the elections in the next few weeks to talk about the larger, in fact, election issues within America. Many thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Again, if you tuned in too, here in New Delhi, this is Smita Sharma for ETV.